Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. For today's video, I want to show you some of the latest data that I've been sifting through related to the electric vehicle market in the United States, specifically SUVs. And there's some trends that are happening that are quite eye-opening. Without further ado, let's get started right away. Usually I start every so often by going to a car maker's website. In this case, I went to Ford's website just to see what they're offering from an options perspective with their latest products. In this case, the Mustang Mach-E. The F-150 Lightning is another one. And the one thing I noticed is that the Mustang Mach-E, you can no longer configure it on Ford's website. It forces you to search inventory here. The only way to search cars is by going through their dealership inventories. And so what this sort of kind of a light bulb that one up is like, that's actually quite interesting. It looks like Ford is potentially switching their strategy. They're no longer allowing you to buy a car brand new based on what you want. They're essentially forcing you to buy a pre-configured car from a dealer, and that has a lot of things attached to it. It reduces their complexity. They can just tell you what you can buy, so it maximizes their profitability, so on and so forth. So then what I said is, okay, so let me go ahead and search your inventory and, either use it Find My Ford or search inventory right on Ford's website. But I'm like, you know what? There's a little bit easier way of doing this. My buddy Zach, who runs Car Edge, and they have also an awesome podcast on YouTube as well with his dad, Ray. This is caredge.com. You can just search for new cars just by clicking on new. He's not sponsoring this video. This is a tool that I use all the time, completely honest here. So I went ahead and typed Ford Mach-E and 3,300. Bless you to my wife, if you can hear her sneezing in the background. 33 new Ford Mustang Mach-E's came up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm also going to look at the used car market as well, because that's something that I like to keep an eye on to see how often, folks are turning in their vehicles, so on and so forth. And the thing I noticed is like, okay, there's 1830 specifically used Mach-E's in the entirety of the United States. Again, Ford Mustang Mach-E used 1830. Then I'm like, okay, let me put that against one of Mustang Mach-E's closest competitors, which is the Tesla Model Y. Tesla does a little bit differently. They run their own dealership network, but you can still find used Model Ys at dealership lots. And for the same exact criteria, nationwide, used nationwide, basically, right here, 1,500 used Model Ys on dealership lots. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then there's about 200 more on Tesla's site, directly from Tesla's website. You can go find Model Ys around their website. There's about 200 more additionally. But what's interesting here is that in 2022 for the United States, Mach-E sold about 40,000 in the US alone for the entire year, and the Model Y sold about 230,000 cars in that same year. And so what that means, if you put those two things together, is that the Mach-E has more used inventory than the Model Y, even though the Model Y is selling significantly more per year than the Mach-E. And so if you adjust it for the volume and the inventory, so you can look at it apples to apples based on how much the dealer has and how much each company sells, Ford has about 6.5 times more used inventory than Tesla if you just take those two things hand in hand. So I found that to be actually quite strange, given where we are today with how quickly EVs are being adopted, so on and so forth. So I asked the questions like, okay, so why is this? Why could this be the reason? And before I show you, I would love it if you throw me a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show this to more people. Thank you so much. I almost forgot I had that slide in there. So if you go to Ford's website and you pull up their new pricing, really the cheapest one I could find, you might be able to find a new one. There was literally two of them that were priced at this level. It's about $50,000 with some fees and some basically dealer options as well. And so after you take the EV federal tax credit, for Ford, it's about $3,700. They lost about $3,700 because the raw materials are not being sourced from U.S. partner countries for the IRA bill that they put in last year. It's about $46,000 sort of net before any fees or dealer markups for a Mustang Mach-E, the cheapest one you can find right now based on my research. If I look at their closest competitor, which is the Tesla Model Y, the cheapest Model Y you can buy from the configurator from Tesla, they let you just buy one brand new. You don't have to go through their inventory listing if you don't want to. It's $46,900, but they're also eligible for an EV tax credit. This one for Tesla is $7,500, and the cheapest Tesla Model Y you can buy is about $39,000. So there's a huge gap between the Model Y and the Mustang Mach-E. The Tesla is about 15% cheaper now, ever since Tesla started their crazy price decreases, which is getting a lot of criticism and obviously happiness from people that want a Tesla for cheaper, but investors aren't too happy about it. They are about 15% cheaper, apples to apples, when you compare the Mustang Mach-E's versus the Tesla Model Y. So that could be a pretty big signal as to why the Ford Mustang Mach-E has about 6.5 times more inventory on hand if we really adjust it for how much they sell each year. So I'm like, okay, so what about the rest of the market? This seems like a pretty big signal that these price decreases might be working. Something's going on. And so I went back to CarEdge, to my buddy Zach. If you do want to follow Zach, he's on Twitter at Shefska. Just provides great information every single day about the car market. They're a primary resource that I use every single day. Again, not a sponsor. I just love to use their stuff. And so I have zero problems promoting their products. So Zach has the ability to use the CarEdge data that they gather every single day to basically pull U.S. dealership inventories on a daily basis across the entire United States for every single car. And then he can also look at the last 45 days or longer or shorter, but I landed on 45 days of how many cars are sold out of these dealers, essentially. And so using those two data sets, how much new dealership inventory there is at a dealer and how much they've sold in the last 45 days, we can come up with a days of supply at dealerships for Tesla Model Y competition, essentially how long it would take a dealer to clear their lots if people were buying at the same levels for the last 45 days. It's a good measure to understand just how much inventory a specific automaker has. Now, these results are crazy, are absolutely crazy, and I'm going to show it to you. Real quick, I do have a Twitter at Farzyness, Farzyness, Ness. I can't even spell my own handle. Subscriptions are available there as well, and you get these sort of perks with it if you want to support me there. I would really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. So here are the 4 primary competitors that Tesla has in the U.S. related to the electric vehicle market. They have the Ford Mustang Mach-E, they have the Volkswagen ID.4, they have the Kia EV6, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. These are Tesla's 5 primary competitors right now in the United States for electric vehicle SUVs. For a healthy inventory level at dealerships, typically you want it to be around 60 days of supply. This is so dealers have enough cars to go around for customers, and it allows them to sort of have a certain level so that when there's a rush they can sell and they can kind of build up inventory for, say, like Memorial Day sale or summer sale or whatever. So 60 is about the right level. Now, here's where it gets weird. Volkswagen ID.4, 97 days of supply, about 3,000 US sales in the last 45 days, which extrapolates out to about 25,000 yearly run rate. Ford Mustang Mach-E, 123 days of supply, twice that the healthy average. 1,400 US sales in the last 45 days, 11,000 yearly run rate. Basically taking this number for the last 45 days and then assuming they do the same for the rest of the year. If that holds true, they'd be selling about 11,000 for the rest of the year. Not great. Hyundai Ioniq 5, 143 days of supply, 2,700 US sales in the last 45 days, 22,000 yearly run rate. And lastly, the Kia EV6, 177 days of supply, 1,072 US sales in the last 45 days, about 8,500 yearly run rate. And it's important to take those numbers and put it against this, which is EVs are being adopted at about 50% year over year globally growth, meaning that if I'm going to sell 1 million cars this year, next year, given the trend, I want to be selling 1.5 million to keep up. What this data shows is that these automakers have way more supply than they have demand, and their sales are actually going down in 2023 versus 2022 for SUVs in America specifically. This is just a US market, but it's quite telling. Now, I think this shows that there's not enough demand for competing brands versus Tesla at current supply levels. So something has to change. If we take the Model Y data as an example, just to kind of show how dire of a situation this might be for legacy automakers, this is it's called inventory levels, but it's really new listings on Tesla's website for the Model Y specifically by day. And so as of today, according to this chart from Matt Jung, thank you so much for providing this information, Tesla has about 300 new listings for the Model Y. However, some of these listings have multiple cars attached to the listing. So there might be one car, there might be 10 cars, right? But it's kind of eye-opening because we can still assume the worst-case scenario here and say, hey, there might be 10 cars attached to this one listing, and you still, based on the last year, so the last year's throughput for the company, which is about 230,000 Model Y sold in the United States in 2022, and it looks like it's increasing based on Q1 deliveries. Tesla has about somewhere between 1 to 10 days of supply and about a 350 to 500,000 yearly run rate in the United States based on some data that we have access to. It's probably much closer to the 350 given the latest data, but it's expected to ramp as their new factories in Berlin and Austin continue to increase production. So this is at least 9 times better, than its competition. And what's also kind of crazy to think about when we take the Tesla Model Y and put it within context of the rest of the competition we just went through, the Tesla Model Y sells 5 to 7.5 times more in the US than the rest of the competition combined. Tesla Model Y sells 5 to 7.5 times more in the US than the rest of the competition combined. Now, this is given the last 45 days or so worth of data, but it's worth mentioning, especially around a lot of the sort of, these legacy automakers have really been trying to enter the market and compete against Tesla. As of right now, it looks like, at least for the last 45 days, there's a clear winner here, and we'll see if that continues for the rest of the year. It's also worth bearing in mind that Tesla Model Y is likely to be over 50% of Tesla's total sales in 2023, and this is probably why, because people love to buy SUVs in the US, and they seem to be sort of not buying the competing EVs, SUVs, and they're buying Tesla Model Ys instead. And so what now? So if this data is correct, Zach is an awesome provider of data. I have no reason why to think it's not. He's excellent resource. So what now? What could the legacy automakers do to try and reverse this trend, at least for the last 45 days? In my mind, there's only really 2 options here. So the first option is to advertise the hell out of the competitors so that you can differentiate on the feature set as much as possible. This is a little bit challenging for a lot of the brands because they offer a lot of the same stuff between each other. But then a brand like Tesla has a supercharger network. They have safety features. They have the full self-driving stuff. But a lot of it is subjective, right? Somebody could want to pay a premium for, say, a Mustang Mach-E look or sort of driving dynamics versus a Tesla Model Y, which is completely fine. But they need to do something because clearly sales are down significantly versus the previous year. Or the second option is to dramatically lower prices so you can become much more competitive, or at least bring people towards your end so you can sell more cars. The problem here, though, is that the legacy automakers are tied to the dealership network, and the dealers decide to do what they want with pricing. Is not really the manufacturer's sort of thing that they do. It's the dealership network, whereas Tesla can influence pricing across the entire channel, basically with with one of these. And they're like, okay, it's $3,000 cheaper now. Boom, it's $3,000 cheaper. So that's going to be a lot harder to do for legacy automakers. Not to mention, if we use Ford as an example. So Ford very bravely, seriously, Ford deserves a ton of credit for this. They unveiled how much money they are making, or in this case, not making, on their EV side of the business. And as of the Q4 earnings report for the full year of 2022, Ford is losing 40% margin per car. So instead of making money, they're losing 40% margin. So 40% of the sales that they have are actually lost with each sale, which is kind of crazy. And there's no reason why this wouldn't apply to every single other legacy automaker. And so if you're trying to lower price, you have to do so when you're already losing money already, which is obviously a huge deal. And so it does seem like Tesla's strategy of lowering prices seems to be working quite well, at least in the United States, for the last 45 days, let's call it, if we just want to look at that data set. So, yeah. And so with that and sort of in the back of our minds, knowing that we're sort of entering this slowing economy. I think all of us can feel it. The Fed is raising their rates. We know there's less jobs out there. People are not buying nearly as many cars. They're not buying nearly as many homes. Everybody's sort of tightening their wallet a little bit. In a slowing economy, how will competitors sell their product when people are really becoming price conscious? It seems like they're really going to have to lower prices if you're a legacy automaker. And then as the market continues to shift away from the gas car, which is something that's clearly happening in the US and across the world, are legacy automakers prepared for the transition? Are these going to be the cars they're going to be offering in order to sort of offload their gas car business and move it over to the EV business? Or will they offer new products that are going to be more compelling and hopefully they can sell more of and be more, at least if the last 45 days is enough data set that says that, hey, something has to change. Something has to change. And hopefully they have something in the pipeline to be able to do that. But really what I want to know is what you think. And so if you have any thoughts around this data, if you have something that you want to share that you think sort of battles this data and paints a different story, if you think any of this is sort of being looked at incorrectly or you agree with it and you think this is something that makes sense, let me know in the comments. Let's make it a healthy place for discussion. And if you want to see more videos from me, I will love it if you subscribe to my channel. I make videos like these all the time where I try to explore a topic around the world of electrification and sort of the upcoming technologies that are happening in this space in addition to AI. If you want to see more stuff from me, feel free to subscribe. You don't have to, but I would love it if you do. If you want to support the channel, I have merch in the description. You can follow it to my website. I have some shirts and hoodies and stuff. And if you want to support me by purchasing Athletic Greens, feel free to use my coupon. You'll get a free vitamin D and travel packs as well. I've been using this thing for years, every single day, and it's the best thing ever. I love it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you stopping by. I hope this information was informative and helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.